Guys, I am so honored to be here today. I really am. And today, I'm particularly excited about this session because I think that this is the gap that I've not seen other people train on or educate on. Essentially, how do we go from research to real strategy? How do we decide what insights are important? Now, if you've ever attended one of my sessions before, you know how I like to start off these things. I'm going to show you two ads, and I want you to tell me which one you think performed the best, A or B. And I'm only going to show you the hooks of these because we have so much stuff to get through that I want to make sure that we can really dive in on the meat of this presentation first. So we're going to watch A first.
If you've got dry, flaky skin around your nose, eyebrows, beard, or forehead, you don't just have a dry face. You've got something living on your skin.
Ooh, all right. And now B.
If you can't wear makeup because of flakes around your nose, this might be why. You moisturize, it feels better, but a few hours later, the flakes are back.
Okay, I saw a few A's. I see a few B's. Honestly, me trying to keep up with that chat is mad. It was actually B. And I'm actually really excited to dive into this creative a little bit later to actually tell you the story of how we got to this top performing creative. But one thing I do want to mention about this ad, this entire thing was made with AI. So shout out to my video editor who works at PGM with me. She made this entire thing using AI, and now it's crushing it in the ad account. Now, for those of you that don't know me, I want to take a step back and introduce myself. My name is Dara Denney. I've worked for the past 10 years in performance marketing. I was a trained media buyer turned creative strategist. I spent many years working as a senior director at Thesis. And I also live in New York City. Now, I've had the privilege and honor of working with some amazing, amazing brands throughout my career. And creative strategy is truly my life's work. But I always like to tell people that today I have three main jobs. Number one, I'm the co-owner and creative advisor at Point Guard Media. We actually do performance creative for 8 and 9 figure brands. And we're actually hiring right now. So if you're interested in coming on board as a creative strategist or a video editor, be sure to reach out to my business partner, Miguel Mendez, on LinkedIn. But yeah, we do performance creative every single day for our brands. And I honestly love the brands that we get to work on. We have some amazing people. But I'm also a content creator. So I've been doing YouTube for the last 5 years, teaching people everything from media buying to creative strategy. And I get some awesome opportunities as a result of this work. Actually, last week, I was on a panel in New York for New Fronts, where I got to be on stage with Carl Radke and Jenna Lyons. If there's any reality TV fans in the house, then you know who those people are. It was a huge honor. But I'm across all the platforms. So you can catch me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, Twitter sometimes, but that place is a little crazy. Now, the third thing that I'm working on right now is I'm also a soon-to-be brand founder. More about this soon in the coming weeks, but we're going to be launching early next year. Now, I've been doing creative strategy and teaching this stuff for several years. And it's been so interesting to see the trajectory of this work. You know, when I first started, everyone was just obsessed with formats and how to copy your competitors in the right way. And, oh, if this has been running for 100 days on Foreplay, that means it's a good ad. We've come such a long way, y'all. We really have. But I will say the number one question that I've been getting more recently is this: how do you go from all the amazing research that you're doing and actually turn it into winning ad creative? How do you decide which insights are important? How do you decide what you're actually going to concentrate on as a team? So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. We're really specifically going to dive into these three things. We're going to dive into personas. I think really understanding who your personas are is going to make it really clear what types of insights you should be focusing on. And then also about how to diagnose your brand. This is something that I've started doing in the last year that's really helped provide a lot of clarity. And then we're going to go into creative roadmaps. I know I've made some content about creative roadmaps over the last few weeks, so I'm going to show you exactly how I'm road mapping for my clients. And yes, I will be providing you guys a template at the end of this so that you can see exactly how I'm doing this and you can make your own roadmaps of your own. So let's go ahead and dive in to personas. Why personas? Why is it so important? Right now, for many of you that are very familiar with this work, you've probably heard of Meta's Andromeda. And essentially, this is the new algorithm that is able to look at the millions of potential ads that advertisers put out into the ecosystem and decide which ones are going to be the most impactful for every unique individual. And what Meta has said is that this is actually more of a persona-based algorithm. So they are ranking and retrieving ads based on the personas, aka how we show up in their feeds. So what this will tactically look like for a brand, right, is something like this from Seed Health. This is one of their most best performing verticals, which is this idea of pooping every day. Just spoiler alert, you're going to hear me say this word a lot in this presentation, so just gear up for that. But Meta is categorizing for everyone who's going to be interested in a specific messaging or formats like this, and that's how they're delivering them. Now, as a creative strategist, I actually want you to think about personas in two distinct ways. And I actually find that this tends to be a pretty big unlock for people. Number one, who your customers actually are. So this is going through your reviews, this is going through your customer interviews. These are the people who've actually bought your product. And then number two, who your ads are actually targeting, right? So if this is an analysis that you haven't done before, I often find that who you are currently targeting in your ads and who is actually buying your product can often be very different. And it's a really good idea to make sure that you're on the same page with this. So I'm going to go through and show you how you can figure out both of these. So let's start with who your ads are targeting now. The easy way, let's get this out of the way first. You can use Motion's intended audience feature and AI tagging. And I love being able to use this to get a quick gut check on who these ads are actually delivering to. So this is some of our top performing creative, and you can see, oh, wow, we actually have pretty different audiences here. People who are daters versus odor conscious women. But what I will say is, as creative strategists, it's our job to go a lot deeper. So I actually really love using Claude to run an analysis on an ads library. And what's really cool about this is you can actually do this for any brand that's on ads library, aka any brand out there. So even if you're going through a audit process with a brand, or you're just nosy as hell like me, then you're going to be able to do this type of analysis. And just, spoiler alert, we are going to be providing this presentation to you guys afterwards, but now would be a good time. If you want to take a screenshot of this prompt, do so. Now, the big thing with this prompt, right, is, hey, ask Claude, and I'm using Claude Cowork for this. Can you do an analysis on this brand's ad library? Provide the link. And the big thing that we're going to be zeroing in on right now is, hey, who do they seem to be targeting as personas from the POV of their ads only? And this is the analysis that Claude Cowork was able to give to me. And what I really love about this too is it gives you an overview snapshot of all the live ads in the account. So we have the video ads, static ads, and how many partnership ads they have going. Now, the personas, here's how this is netting out. It's going to look at your primary personas, secondary personas. So if I was a creative strategist getting ready to work with Oats Overnight, I'd be looking at this like, okay, it seems like the majority of our ads are targeting the busy health conscious professional and the fitness focused macro. Keep that in your head, right? Because what we're looking at now is just who our ads seem to be targeting at this point. But now let's go into our real personas, right? And this is the prompt that I am using to get the real personas, the real people who are actually buying. So this is another good one for you to screenshot. You're gonna wanna take a CSV of your reviews and put this into ChatGPT or Claude Cowork. And what we're gonna have here is we're gonna have it extract 5 core personas and give each a name that fits the trigger or their main problem. Now, if you're using Claude Cowork, it's going to give you a pretty little presentation like this. And what I find is immediately interesting is this. Number one, the comfort craver, which is showing up as the people who are actually buying Oats Overnight, is actually quite different than the primary persona that is showing up on the ads that we actually make. Now, I do want to pause here for a second. When I am thinking about my own process as a creative strategist, this mapping out personas is wildly, wildly important. And it's something that we actually do. Once we have Claude Cowork go through and make these presentations, we also create something that's a little bit more shareable, something that we can go a little bit more in depth on. This is actually an audience segment or persona segment document that's for one of our clients. And I want to break this down for you a little bit more. Now, when I say trigger-based audience segment, again, this is essentially the problem or the trigger that caused people to be in their current state. Now, we also like to have a little bit more of that core story. So here, for this specific brand, one of their segments is hormonal or life stage people who experience body odor. So the core story is, okay, body odor suddenly started happening after a life event or a shift. Then we break down the demographic data. Are they women or men? What age are they? And then we also dig a little deeper into their core desires and what they really care about. Now, another thing that we always do too is we always get signals from our reviews. We always make sure that when we are working with AI, and this is regardless of what LLM that you're working with, we always kind of want the AI to prove why they created this type of persona or audience segment. So always ask for those signals of reviews so that you can double check the AI's work, essentially. Now, let's go back to Oats Overnight, right? When I was looking at these two really different personas that showed up, number one from the reviews, number two from who we're actually targeting, I still had a few more data points where I was like, okay, how am I going to start building this roadmap? What are the things that I want to pressure test? I'm not sure if any of you noticed this, but I did have one more thing that I told the LLM. Make sure that you rank the personas for the ones that show up the most, and then make another ranking that shows the most emotion in their reviews. Essentially, what this did is it really helped me understand where I should prioritize. So again, we already knew the comfort creator, the texture fixer was something that was showing up a lot in the reviews. But I also wanted to see how emotive or the emotional intensity of these audiences. And what I noticed here was pretty interesting. It was actually the fullness chaser, which was actually ranked pretty low on the ranking by volume. So this showed me, I think this could be a really interesting opportunity for Oats Overnight, actually. So I know I'm going through this pretty fast and there's a lot of questions around, hey, how can we do this more slowly? You guys will have all the step by step, but the main things for you guys to remember is number one, you're gonna wanna analyze your current creatives to understand who you are actually targeting, who your ads are currently attracting out in the ecosystem. And then you're going to analyze your customer reviews to understand who is actually buying. And it's this gap that's going to be your opportunity as a creative strategist. So let's dive back into Oats Overnight, right? I actually created a creative testing roadmap for them. If I was going to be their creative strategist, what I would actually want to make for them. And I want to zoom in on these partnership ads really quick, because when I did that initial analysis with Claude Cowork, it was actually the partnership ads that stuck out to me as a really big opportunity. We could see here, okay, there are 32 partnership ads, 15% of total. And I know as a creative strategist working in this industry for a long time, that's actually pretty low for a brand of their size. And then another thing, their highest partner ranking is and number 24 in terms of impressions. So what I mean by that is that this is showing up in number 24 when you are ranking your ad creatives by impressions from highest to lowest. So this is something anyone can do in ads library. And essentially, like, what this shows you is the ad creatives that are, in theory, getting the most spend, performing the best. And they're at least getting the most eyeballs, right? I have heard of a few brands doing reach campaigns to try and throw off their competitors. But for the most part, when I check what my brands personally are doing here, it is showing up that everything that is in the top 2 rows are what is actually performing the best. So this is something that, you know, I would make sure that you're looking at, especially for brands that you are interested in looking at. Now, as a part of this analysis too, I had it do a deep dive on the top ads by impressions. And as a part of that, it also looked at the creative hook strategies. And what I saw here was, the packing and warehouse hooks and formats is something that seems to be working the best for them. But it's not something that they are really leaning into as much in terms of partnership ads. So as a creative strategist, I would say, I think this is a good opportunity for this brand to actually create a new page that they can use to run whitelisted content or partnership ad content through. And then you'll see here that I have the EGC main. EGC stands for employee generated content. They do have a main content creator. And sometimes I've seen by just having a single individual, that could potentially be better. But this to me reads as low hanging fruit that this brand could look into to see, could we get better performance and get higher ranking partnership ads. Now, another partnership ad idea that I had for them, PA right here, is based on this busy, health conscious professional individual, right? Because their highest ranking partnership ad right now is based on a tennis pro or based on their macro health audience, I'd really actually want to try sliding in someone who's more a part of that busy, health conscious professional. And what's interesting is I did this analysis for them maybe about 2 weeks ago, but I saw yesterday that they actually did have busy working families now doing partnership ads. So they were thinking the exact same thing that I was, which we love to see it. Now, the final 4 ad creatives that I want to go into that I was prioritizing for them is based on number 1, the comfort creator and the fullness chaser. So we saw that the fullness chaser was the ad creative or was the audience that ranked the highest in emotional intensity. So these 2 right here. And I decided as the creative strategist, hey, actually, I want to do a series of statics and work with a creator to really pressure test this insight a little bit further. And I know some of you are probably thinking, just do it with the statics, don't waste the money and time on the creator. But what I've found when you're ranking signals by emotional intensity, oftentimes a creator is going to be a lot better at actually getting that emotion across the finish line as opposed to just a bunch of statics. And the final 2 that I had here is based on their taste and on their nostalgia audience, right? Those comfort cravers, those people who are really digging in to the nostalgia of their childhood. So I'd want to test out a compilation that we could use with B-roll, really diving into the type of taste profiles they have, and also digging more into that nostalgia bend. Now, I want to go back to this creative that I showed you at the beginning, right? When we were doing our persona research, we realized that actually, even though all of the ad creative that this brand had been running previously, a lot of it was men because they have founders who are men. But the audience breakdown actually skewed a lot more towards women. And when we did the persona breakdown and review data, we showed that a lot more of them were African-American women, and they were also really concerned about makeup and cosmetics flaking, which is how we were able to get to this winning creative. All right, guys. Let's go next to the diagnosis. I know I see a lot of questions popping up. We are going to leave plenty of time for us to go into your questions. And I'm also happy to dive into some of my Claude stuff to show you if you guys want to jam on that a little bit more. But I do want to hop next into the diagnosis. But before I do that, I want to show you 2 more ad creatives that my team made. And I want you to guess which one you think performed best. So I'm going to show you A, and then I'm going to show you B.
Bamboo and polyester measure at just 15 hertz. Your body's natural frequency is 68 hertz. Cotton gets to 100 hertz, but linen, 5,000 hertz. That's why the fabrics you sleep on can affect your energy.
All right, and then B. Trying to see, a few of you said B, a few of you said A. B. Pretty even split. I will say both of these performed pretty well, but it was actually B, when we first came onto the account, that was their top performer. But A is actually the thing that's performing the best right now, which I think is really interesting. We actually made this as a result of our TikTok ads viral SOP that my business partner Miguel made. But this ad creative B really highlighted the big diagnosis that we had coming into this ad account, right? When we first entered this ad account, we noticed that a lot of the creatives were actually pretty lower mid funnel, right? We had a lot of testimonials. We had a lot of messaging that was about our best sellers. And even this ad creative right here, even though the imagery is so amazing, it's like pointing out the color profiles and the color name. It's more of a merchandising play. It's not actually encouraging someone who's outside of this ecosystem to buy, really. So when we first got onboarded, we ended up mapping out all of their top performing creatives to understand, okay, where are they in the marketing awareness level? And we noticed pretty much everything was solution aware or below. So the diagnosis that we came to was, hey, this business needs more top of funnel content. This is the type of content that's going to engage, educate, and refill their paid social funnel. And in fact, if we only concentrate on generating more upper funnel content, we're not only going to open up new personas, but we're also going to continue to drive more performance on the lower funnel assets that are already working. So your diagnosis when you come into a brand is really your anchor point as a creative strategist. It's going to be 1 to 2 sentences that explains the why behind the ads that you are testing. And it's really a point where you're going to take a step back and be like, okay, looking at all the ad creatives that we want to test, what is the connective tissue there? And what I'll say is, if you don't have a diagnosis, you don't really have a real strategy. You just have aimless week to week testing. And this diagnosis that we gave this brand ended up working super well for us. And all of the content that we've been making for them for the last several months have all been really top of funnel content. So this one right here, how to pick sheets that are safe for your skin. And then this winning message, which was around how to break the curse of millennial gray, which is like super viral TikTok ad style. But I want to go into a few more diagnoses for you, right? Because I think that for Bedfreds, it was really specific. A recent client that we onboarded, actually, we noticed that all of their top performing content was just for one persona. So our big hypothesis coming in is, hey, we actually want to focus on opening up a brand new audience for them. So in the early days of working with this brand, which we're in now, we're focusing a lot on split testing tons of different audiences and doing a lot more persona research. Now, another one, this is actually a client that we re-diagnosed recently. So something we like to do is give a re-diagnosis to a brand like every quarter or so. Now, after we did the initial round of persona testing, we realized that the older age segment had the best performance and retention. So what we're focusing on right now for this brand is actually solely going to be focused on 40 plus creators, as we saw such great performance coming out of there. We really wanted to double and triple down on that. Now, an old client that I still do consulting work with, I was recently doing a session with their creative strategist, and we realized that actually they need to do a lot less promotional ads and things that are going to be turned off within a specific time period. I can't tell you how many times I talk to teams that are overwhelmed with requests from the marketing department or brand marketing. Your job as a creative strategist is not to make these Mother's Day 25% statics. Your job is to grow the business, and doing something that is not evergreen and is going to be turned off within a week or two is something that as a creative strategist, you need to adamantly push back on. It's not your role. And you need to figure out an MVP or a minimal viable product process to be able to get those requests out the door quickly. And then actually a client I audited recently and we're going to bring on, we discovered that they actually had a lot of great learnings that they weren't doubling down on enough. So all that they needed was actually more content featuring their winning messaging and their winning angles, because they were probably missing out on low-hanging fruit conversions. And this is something I want to emphasize with you guys, because the top brands they aren't coming up with the most creative ideas. They're actually doubling and tripling down on what's working. So I actually want to show you an example from a few brands on like how these brands are actually doing it, right? So we saw this one earlier from Seed Health. Let's listen to a few seconds of this, and then I'm going to cycle through a few ads quickly.
I'm finally pooping every single day, and here's my secret.
I'm finally pooping every single day, and here's my secret.
I'm finally pooping every single day, and here's my secret.
I am finally pooping every day, day in and day out. It actually works like clockwork.
This is what I would call a creative strategy pillar, right? And this is another really good analysis for you to do through your ad libraries. What are your creative pillars that are working again and again? And this is one that Seed does so much that 1 in 7 of their ads features this angle. And this is the thing about that I see a lot of creative strategists getting sidetracked with, is they think they have to have the most creative out of the box idea. It's actually not your job to be creative. It's your job to make the business money and to grow revenue. So your diagnosis can be new and noteworthy, but likely you are not doubling down properly on what is already working. Everyday Dose. This is another brand that does this really well.
You wake up feeling like you have horrible sugar cravings. Your skin keeps breaking out, and you have zero energy even after 8 hours. And I can't blame it because I used to deal with all that as well until I fixed it.
That sound is nightmare fuel, but it's going to illustrate that, hey, like every single person here probably has a creative angle or concept that hasn't been fully taken advantage of. And this is actually something that we just did last week for this brand. These were 2 video creatives that had been top performers for us. And we just decided to literally take the hook in the text overlay and put it on a static ad. And now this is our top performer. So again, back to this idea of the diagnosis. How are you going to diagnose your brand, right? You're going to conduct your research. I have a 5-step process, very similar to Sarah Levenger's and the amazing session that she put on last week. But you're going to conduct your research, right? And then you're going to analyze your persona both ways. Who are your ads targeting now? Who are your real personas? And then I want you to understand your awareness and sophistication levels. I didn't dive a ton into sophistication levels, but this is another prompt that you can use to understand where your creatives are currently netting out. And then you can determine your creative diversity level. This is actually a video that I dive deep on to really gauge where you are creative diversity wise, which is really important for giving the Andromeda algorithm the juice to really find your best and most consistent customers. But I also have a creative diversity cheat sheet here that Meta created. Again, you guys will be getting this in the follow-up, but this is something that you also need to take note of when you're going through the audits and when you're really developing strategy for your brand. all of this together should bring you to your diagnosis, your 1 to 2 sentence strategy that's going to encompass most of what your upcoming creatives to date are. I often find too, like as a leader managing a group of creative strategists, this is kind of your job to do, right? This is your role for your team. It's something that if you can take a step back and really provide that clarity for your team, this is something that is really, really helpful on the leadership side. Okay, final thing that we're going to go into is creative road mapping, right? The sheer act of writing down your ideas and prioritizing them is probably going to put you ahead of 75% of creative strategists, because I've been doing this work for a long time, and I've worked with a lot of big brands. I think it would surprise many of you to hear that actually a lot of them are reacting week to week. There's not like some secret code that the 9-figure brands are using. This is a very new industry. But I will say the thing that separates teams that have clarity and teams that are continually executing on top performing creative is they have roadmaps. They're planning things out in advance. So here's where road mapping fits right inside of your process. So whenever we are working on a creative, we always like to put it into one of these tiers. Is it a tier 1 edit? So is it an iteration? Is it a tier 2 edit? Is it post-production? Or is it tier 3 production? Is it content? And road mapping for all of them falls number 2. So it happens after research, right? So what happens during the research process? You're going to come up with all these amazing ideas, and you're going to feel a little overwhelmed, and you're like, where do I start? Like, where do I go from here? And the conversation we have on our team every single week is, okay, here's all of our amazing ideas. We filter this through the lens of what has the most evidence for performance. So you're going to be looking at all these amazing ideas that you have, and you're going to be like, oh, wait, before and after ads showing dry skin, is that really something that we have evidence that is going to work? Yes or no. But after you filter through this lens of evidence, you're going to have a much smaller list of ideas and insights that you're going to want to test on. So how do you rank evidence, right? How do you filter through evidence? Now, I like to think about it in terms of like, hey, this is the type of evidence that's going to make me really high confidence. This is the type of evidence that's, I'm not really that's low confidence. So high confidence, if you have pressure tested formats and messaging and creators in the past and you already see them working, this is really high confidence. Like, hey, like Seed Health knows the pooping every day angle is what's going to work for them again and again. They have high confidence in that working. But when it comes to things that are low confidence, which are things like, oh, it's our competitor's longest running ad, or because our competitors did it. These are things that give me low confidence. And I've had creative strategists bring things like this to our stand-up meetings every week. And I got to tell you, I turn them down because you don't know why these brands had been running these ads for a while. And what I often find actually is that they're actually lower funnel. So it's been running a long time and it's like buried in a retargeting campaign. So if the only evidence that you ever have when you're coming to your strategy meetings are, hey, this ad ran this amount of time, and you're not, you're not doubling back to your personas, you're not doubling back to all the amazing research that you have, you're not filtering it through this marketing awareness level, then you're not doing your job as a strategist. So I want to dive into road mapping, right? Golden rules of road mapping, so that we can really figure out how to bring all of this together and bring all of this home. Number 1, write down all of your ideas in a central location. And the roadmap, something to give you guys, actually has a place where you're going to be able to do that. Number 2, rank what you have the highest confidence in, and then prioritize what is quickest to get out the door. This is why actually every time I create an initial roadmap for a brand, I always get really quick iterations or low-hanging fruit within the first week or two, based on the research that I did. Again, it's not your job to be the most creative person in the room. It's not your job to impress people. It's your job to drive revenue. And oftentimes that is going to be as a result of just taking advantage of the rich data that you have. The thing too about road mapping is you're going to be able to map out big swings that have massive upside, like mapping out your different personas and bid production. And again, like leave room for creativity and magic, but it's not your job to be creative. So let's dive into this creative testing roadmap. I will be giving you guys these templates. So my roadmaps are split into 4 distinct parts. Number 1, creators. So I always like to list out the creators that we really like or the creators that we want to work with. This just helps on the performance end of things, because even in the age of AI, and even though I showed you some of our AI creatives that are doing well, like we still need creators, we still need partnership ads, we still need amazing partners to get great content out the door. The second thing here is the icebox. So this is where you are going to really write out all of your great creative ideas. So anytime that when you're going through research and you're like, oh, I want to do a before and after ad of this, or this messaging point really sticks, or oh, this persona is really interesting, you're going to write that down here in the icebox. And what's great here is like you don't get graded for anything in the icebox. You're just actually writing it down. Now, to the marketing leaders in the room, being able to have a central location to categorize your ideas is going to save your ass again and again, because I can't tell you how many times I have been at the end of a creative sprint cycle and everyone's just like, well, like, what are the ideas? And it's like, we should have been cataloging our ideas in the icebox all along. That's what you should be doing. So it's really a part of your job as a leader on the team to enforce that your creative strategists are routinely putting ideas in a centralized location. It could be in a Google Sheet like this. It could be in some AI thing that you spin up. I've been using Replit lately, love it. Or it can be a Notion file. It doesn't really matter what, it matters that you do it. Now, the third thing inside here is quarterly planning. So I will say one big unlock that I've had recently with my roadmaps is being able to map out your holidays and your marketing calendar events, your product launches, and even different personas that are going to be better targeted at different types of the year. Gives me so much like space to actually do my job, not having to reinvent the wheel all the time. Especially if you're working on an internal marketing team where you performance creative has to make ads for the new product launch, or oh God, we need something for Mother's Day. Knowing this stuff in advance, planned out quarterly, is huge for the program. And I also really like to map out like business as usual or iterations at times. But I will say, like, if I see an iteration that can get out the door within a week, I'm adding that into our weekly sprint. You don't have to wait just because it's not on the quarterly roadmap. A note about the personas. This is something new that I started doing after talking with your coach and my personal great friend, Joanna Wallace. I know sometimes if you're doing this persona research for the first time, you might be like, oh my God, I have so many personas. How do I test them all? And being able to map out quarterly, hey, we're not going to test everything right away, can be really helpful. Like for instance, with our client, It Just Works, we had a hot climate, like gym goer audience that we decided to not actually start testing until May or Q2, so that we could have room to really explore the other personas in depth earlier in the season. Now, the meat of this is going to be your actual creative roadmap, right? So after you decide which creators you're potentially going to want to work with, you put all of your ideas in a centralized icebox, and then you have planned everything out quarterly. Then monthly, we are creating these roadmaps. Now, the way that I like to really flesh out these ideas inside the roadmap is to have the persona, have like a 1 to 2 sentence idea, and then have 3 messaging options. So maybe they're hooks, maybe they're variations. And what I'll say too is that I, as someone who owns an agency and has worked agency side for a lot of my career, we will duplicate these roadmaps monthly so that it's really easy to see, okay, for this client, this is what we're doing for May. For this client, this is what we're doing for June. But when I have been internal brand side, we'll just have one of these ongoing forever and ever on men, which is crazy. But when things are out the door and you've already analyzed them, you can just collapse them. Now, again, the creative roadmap, the main purpose here is like for your icebox, you want to get all your ideas documented. No one's getting graded for anything that's in the icebox, but it is going to save your ass when it comes time to making your roadmaps. Number 2, quarterly, plan out all the things you need to do so that you can actually prioritize what gets real results. And then 3, your monthly road mapping is going to force you to get clear and make better decisions. Now, how this all falls into like a creative ops system, like falls into the sprint structure, right? I like to create creative roadmaps on a monthly cadence. And this is especially relevant for me because I'm agency side. But then the tasks are going to be prioritized and assigned weekly. So the way that we would do this, or the way that we do this now, is every Friday or Monday, we have a stand-up meeting and we decide, okay, these creatives are the one that are actually going to move into production. And then we have daily or bi-daily stand-ups. When I was at the big agency, we had a stand-up every single day for the production team. And then this then falls to the creative retro, which happens monthly with the team or client. I guess the thing I want to emphasize with creative roadmaps is the sheer act of writing out all of your ideas, deciding which ones are going to that are going to be on the chopping block, or which ones are actually going to go in production, filtering through this lens of evidence is going to inherently make you a lot more strategic and learn how to prioritize things. Like I said, I'm going to be giving you guys access to this creative testing roadmap. I'm ready to just jam with you. That was 50 minutes in. I figured I'd give us a lot of time to be able to connect and just like go over your questions, because I know there hasn't been a lot of content like made about the messy middle of like research debriefing. And I'm really curious to see what you guys have questions on. So thank you, everyone. I love the Motion team and the Motion crew so much.
Everybody throw some love into the chat, get the emojis going, get how you're feeling going. Dara absolutely crushed it. Oh my goodness.
Thank you. I will say I saw some people in there making fun of the way I pronounce library. I'm never going to change. You just have to accept it. I'm just a humble girl from the Midwest. My haters are going to hate.
Library. Yeah, we say it differently. Okay, tomato, tomato, potato, potato. Everybody.
Exactly.
We make it work. Dara, there's a bunch of different questions that are popping up, honestly. So I got to like read through and pull some things up. But there is a consistent theme of like people wanting to double click. Double click into some of the things you had shown. So like one of the big ones that popped up was like how you use Claude. So I'm wondering if that's the first one we could double click into.
Yeah, sure. So what I will say about like how I'm using Claude is, number one, like this is something that my team crushes at. Like we are using Claude in a few distinct areas. Number one, we are not using it for the first pass of our research. I always think that's like an important thing to like talk about and share, because there are other creative strategists who I respect and like I think are God tier that do a first pass using AI. I choose not to. And so that's like a choice that you get to make as a creative strategist. But the points where we are using it in research is like our customer review mining. With Claude Cowork, you can also get all your customer reviews like directly from the website. So like if you're agency side, a lot of times you'll like bother the client, give me a CSV of your reviews. If they don't have it, you can now do that with Claude Cowork. And so anything that has to do with reviews, analyzing mass data sets, going through that persona research, that's where I'm using the bulk of like our work in Claude. The other place that we are using Claude is we will always create a Claude project uniquely for each client, where we are uploading all of our context documents, all of our persona research, all of our past performance like documentation. And we are localizing all of our briefing and all of our like even our hook building and our brainstorming to those specific projects. I'd say like where Claude has had the biggest impact team-wise has been in the briefing process. We're not doing full, complete AI briefs or AI scripts. There's a heavy hand in how much we are like changing and adapting based on like the creators that we're working in and based on like my experience as a creator, but like we're using it heavily in like the briefing process and getting briefs just like out the door quicker. But like some of the stuff that I showed you guys earlier, let me see if I can pull some of this up so I can just like dive a little deeper into it. Because I think that like some of this Claude Cowork stuff is just so fun. It's like you're definitely going to get distracted with it is what I'll say. Yeah, let me pull this up for you guys. So like the full of this analysis that I did with Oats Overnight, I actually thought was so interesting. Like it begins with this overview snapshot. It does a format breakdown, which I find to be like helpful from a high level, but the partnership ad stuff was like things that as a strategist, I was like, wow, I actually feel like I can give better high level strategy, like seeing this type of data. It also goes into like creator profile patterns. So I don't have this pulled up right now, but another analysis that I did actually had Claude pull out all of the different creators that they were working with and like developed profiles for them, which is how I was able to see, oh, actually they're mostly like fitness creators, and based on like their core messaging strategies and like the pillars that they're using, it didn't actually quite make sense. Well, more to their like creative hook strategies. But yeah, this little like this document has been clutch when we start onboarding with a brand, or even just like candidly when we go into a pitch meeting. I can be like, yeah, what's the dealio with your partnership ads? They're not doing well. And I haven't even looked at your ad account. It's kind of a power move.
Such a good anchor, and the visual. It's like start at the high level, then you can get into the granular. So it works really well. It works really well.
Yeah.
Dara, one of the questions, so you'd actually mentioned this at the beginning, but there's a theme of question that keeps popping up that looks similar to this. So it's like, can you explain how you would do the Claude steps without Claude? I think it's important for people to understand the underlying logic so they can spot when Claude makes mistakes. So
yeah,
wondering if you have comments on that, and then your reason of why.
Yeah, I like this question. It's kind of, I want to make sure that I understand it, but I'm gonna kind of go down the direction I'm gonna go down anyways. But I want to make sure that like this question is being asked not because you want to not use AI. Like I think that for analyzing mass data sets and for analyzing a lot of this like data, like you need it and you should be using it. But the things that help me so that I know when AI is acting whack and it's not like giving me the right output does come back to this idea of making sure that you are doing some sort of research manually. So this is actually our internal process for how we conduct creative strategy research. So like I had said to you guys, hey, like I actually like doing research initially manually. And that starts, and this is a 5-step process that we have. That starts with this reputation analysis. So this reputation analysis, this is actually a document that I have given motion, and like I've like done presentations for you guys for like what, 4 years now? It's crazy.
Yeah.
But like I've given this away before. I still use it. Like it's changed, but being able to go through this process and like actually see how people are interacting with content, with like this market in real time, allows you to like spot when AI is just giving you bullshit. And like AI is going to give you a lot of bullshit. So like I just think that like having that like initial manual process is kind of like my cheat code for it. So yeah, I hope that helps.
I think so. Shout out to whoever asked the question. I think it was Michelle who asked the question, because it's like, don't be afraid of AI. Like there are things that it's genuinely good at that we should be able to leverage it for.
Yeah, because like Evan, I have a hot take, like, and I'm wondering if I'm going to cause a stir. I'm like side-eyeing the chat, but like my current hot take is that like the people who are adamantly like against AI are probably like more dangerous to like creative strategy as a whole than people who are actually making AI. And that's because I think it's so integral to our process now. Like we can't like unwind Pandora's box, people. Like we really do need to like utilize this as a tool, but like nothing pisses me off more than when I see like some think piece that's like about why like AI is like the end of humanity and like yes, it's bad for the environment. Talk to Anthropic and OpenAI. Don't talk to your fucking average creative strategist who's just like out there trying to make coin, because that's what we're doing. Like it's not the audience. So yeah, like all of us, we're all pro AI. We're all going to use it in our workflows. We gotta, but like definitely do that manual process. So yeah.
Coming through and mic dropping. It's so interesting because it's like, do you want to be a martyr to the system and like just say screw it? And like there's a place for that. Like if that's how you want to stand up, like
my problem with it is it gives people permission to not develop the skills that they need to survive in this next era. And like we all need these skills to survive in this next era. I was slow on the come up for like creative strategy. You want to know who wasn't slow and who like really got in there early?
Shout out, Alicia.
Like I still see people who are like, yeah, I'm not going to use it, like, and getting mad at like people using Chat GPT for like average sit. And it's just like, no, like I don't condone that. Yeah. You can tell I've had a lot of this. So we can move on to the next question.
Dara, honestly, with the hot takes plus the game that you're sharing with everybody, there's been a lot of people like, what are Dara's socials again? Like, how do I connect with Dara? So maybe you can bring your slide up again.
Oh,
so people can take a quick screenshot so people can tap in.
Oh. Well, I'm excited to have new friends. I'm excited to have new friends. That's what I'm getting from this.
Amazing. Okay, that's where you can tap in. Make sure you don't miss Dara. Dara, another question that's popping up here that's been pretty common is people who are just getting started with a new brand. So Denise has a question that represents a lot that have been popping up. So if a brand is really new, how do you suggest doing the personas without actual customer data?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because you're also not going to be able to like look at the creatives that you're making. I think where I would start is like identifying a few different competitors or similar brands in the market and running that persona SOP through those brands, but filtering it through the lens of where they are failing. So really concentrate on not like the 5-star like reviews where you're looking at their cheerleader VIP customers. Really focus on like the 3, 2, and 1-star reviews and see where you can really fill that gap in that market specifically. So that's where I would start. And then from there, you're going to be able to build slowly on like who your customers are, the feedback that they're giving, and then the type of performance data that you're getting out by actually putting things into market. I wish that I could tell you guys that I had an SOP that like made me creative winners every single time that I put it out like into the algorithm. And I don't. Like a big part of what we do is like, we have to test, we have to have a hypothesis, we have to pressure test it. So like also just accept that that's part of the process.
Huge. Okay. Now, you showed the actual document where you're actually planning out the roadmap. One of the questions that popped up quite a bit, and Bianca has one that represents a lot that I've seen pop in, is where does budgeting come into this mix? And then the added layer that people are asking about is volume.
Yeah.
So how many should we be making?
Yeah. So the volume question is always going to fall to the brand. Like, how much volume should you be making is going to be like a brand question. It's going to be a confluence of the amount of budget that you have and also your creative operations. So I'm not going to like sit down and tell a brand, oh yeah, you need to put 10 new ad creative tests out into the market when like realistically they're only going to be able to make 3. I know some people make like calculators that spit that stuff out and like tell you how many ad creative tests like that you should be running every single week. I don't do it like that. I guess I should develop a process for you guys, but I've been doing this work for so long that I kind of just have like a spidey sense of like, hey, here's how much volume you guys need. But then what was the second part of that question?
Budgeting.
Budgeting, yeah. The budgeting is going to be a part of like the quarterly process for us. And again, this is like another thing that falls to the brand because me being agency side, it's like the budgeting I do is all right, like a brand hires us for a retainer. We know we are going to be supplying this amount of creative on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. So a lot of the budgeting questions is going to fall brand side, which I always mapped out quarterly when I was brand side. And something that I always did is like, when I was at Laura Geller, I managed like 5 agency relationships, and using Motion, I would map out agency performance so that I could determine on a quarterly basis, are we going to renew? Are we going to renew the budgets for like, are we going to renew like the retainer for this agency or not moving forward? But in terms of like budgets for individual creatives, that's also like a creative testing methodology question that I'd say I've never changed my mind more on creative testing methodologies than I've had within like the last 2 months. So that's my teaser there.
I think it's a good layup. So first of all, everyone, if you were here last week, you heard Sarah say a similar thing. Like you could build this fancy equation that spits out how many creatives you need, but it needs to be rooted in reality. Like what can you actually produce that meets your threshold of quality, basically. So it's like live in reality. That's the important thing. And then Dara, speaking of testing, there is a question that popped up from Anne. So if I pull this one up here, how would you go about creative testing?
Oh God, guys, just go on Twitter. You'll see the fights. The boys can't contain themselves. It's like literally every other month, is it ABO or CBO? There are not many things that are consistent in this world. That argument on Twitter is one of them. Bless them. If you handed me a $2 million per month meta budget like tomorrow, I would do a creative testing campaign ABO. I know that makes people angry, and don't get me wrong. Like I have CBO creative testing clients. Whatever. I'm not romantic about it, but what I like about ABO is like you're not going to be guessing or left wondering if like a creative is going to perform. Actually, the ad creative I showed you guys from Bed Threads, that was the frequency ad. We put that ad into market 2 months ago, and it just started performing like hotcakes like 3 weeks ago. And like me and my co-founder were talking about it. We were like, what the hell is going on? Like, why is that? And I'm like, if we would have known if it was ABO. But like people don't want to have that conversation. I also think that ABO forces a little bit more creative diversity because you're like pressure testing everything that is getting out into market. And like, it's also for me a question of where you're at in your brand growth. Like a question you should ask yourself, ABO versus CBO. Or do you want as many creatives as possible that are performing at goal? If you're in a high scale phase, high growth phase, that's what you want. But if you just want efficiency, then you're probably going to go CBO, but you're always going to be left wondering about certain creatives. So
yeah,
that's where I'm at. And my response isn't perfect. And you know what? I don't lose any sleep over it. So
yeah, it's such an interesting one because it's like it's a media buying question. ultimately, and like the one truth that everyone can agree on is like you want to spend more on what's winning. It's like make that happen, and it's like thumbs up. And then beyond that, it
Yeah.
just becomes a list of things you want to learn. So whenever I hear the CBO, ABO debate, I always pop back to like, well, I have a very specific learning I want. Like if you can get me that with CBO or ABO, like fine, like whichever
Mhm.
way, don't really care. But like I need this learning, please and thank you. And that's the requirement on my side. It's how I've been thinking about it, but there's no perfect answers in all honesty.
There's no perfect answers. Clearly, like people that I think are very smart and like I work on brands that have CBO testing. And it's not just because like I'm like they're not going to change it because like I have a different opinion. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
The more
Yeah.
that you can like be comfortable in the nuance of this field, and the more that like you allow context to dictate your strategy, the stronger of a creative strategist you'll be. The more that you have these hard and fast, always on rules, like that's where like when I work with those type of creative strategists, I'm like, woof, like good luck. I find the most senior, the highest experts are the ones that like change their mind a lot and have a lot of context.
Gotta be like water. And speaking of this, there is a couple questions that popped up. This is from Kiera. If I pronounce that incorrectly, let me know in the chat. I hate messing people's names up. So I think this one's from Kiera. It's like, what do you do about ideas that are trend-based and have a shelf life?
I don't prioritize them, especially if it's like, oh my God, this thing's going viral on TikTok. We got to do it. I'm like, no. Especially as the agency, I'm like, no. Like, I have 8 shots on goal to get a winning creative. I'm not doing a TikTok trend. However, what I will say is I got proven very wrong on this recently, and I loved it. But I had a creative strategist make a creative for bed threads, actually. And she was like, I want to do a listicle that's like the different signs of the zodiac equated with the different like sheet colors, and I'm like, not gonna work. Like, how is Meta gonna target to the right individual? Blah blah blah. It actually ended up performing really really well, and I was like, damn, like you got me there. So I do think too, like when you're thinking about populating your ad account with different creatives, like I'm starting to look at it as like a creative ecosystem. And like some weeks you're going to want to do super top of funnel, super organic stuff. And like I've been encouraging my team and myself to try things that maybe we wouldn't have tried before. Like it is kind of interesting that frequency ad like did so well. Like when I first saw it, I was like, I don't know about that. Like, where's the problem solution? Who gives a shit what the frequency is of your polyester sheets? But it's been a banger. So like I do think just like creative strategy as a whole is like moving towards this more organic, more, the bar is can you make great content or not? And like that is like always changing with culture and with just like the platforms as a whole. So yeah, I'm always willing to have more magic.
But I was
in the
actually going to
outcome.
ask you about the organic side
Yeah.
of things. So I have another one that I'll
Oh,
pop back to,
great.
but on the organic end, there were a lot of questions that popped in. It's like, can people use the same testing for organic? Like, is that something you'd encourage? But more holistically, I'm actually quite curious to how you view organic and paid these days in that relationship.
Wait, can you rephrase that question?
So first question is let's keep it simple, related to your roadmap question, related to your roadmap doc. Is that something that you would encourage people to adopt for like a brand's organic strategy, let's say?
Oh, yeah. Well, fun fact, I do like an organic roadmap for my content as a creator. So like, yeah, like you should have like a marketing calendar. I guess like where I get kind of confused in this conversation, especially with people who are like, who straddle the paid social creative and like the organic creative worlds is like, sometimes they'll say things like, oh, like we test all of our ads first on organic and then only then do we scale to our paid social platforms. And like, I don't know who has time for that. Like, I don't know any of the top brands that are doing that. And like, I've heard of like a few brands here and there. But it's like, yeah, like don't get me wrong. There are times when we're working with a brand, we're like, yo, this popped off on your organic, or we think this is going to work on paid in a certain type of way. Let's test it. But like, I have heard of some workflows that everyone wants to test on organic for free. Everyone's obsessed with this idea of testing for free. I think that's a myth. I don't like it. I don't love it. I don't want to hear about it. But like, you know, you can get lots of learnings from organic.
So Dara, something I've been like seeing in the chat and also picking up in our conversation is like I've noticed that, and it's probably not completely accurate, but strategists start to fall into a couple buckets. There's people who are the like, let's test everything, and they don't really develop an opinion. It's more like project managing and like, let's throw everything on board, see what works and when.
Yeah.
And then there's other folks who get to a point of like really strong conviction, where it's like, that thing's gonna work, or it's like, or prove me wrong. And it's like straddling those lines. So I'm curious for, we have people across the beginner, intermediate, and expert field who are kind of attending these things. Like, should a creative strategist be shooting to get to a point of like high conviction around their like creative decisions and like what's going in the ad account? Or what do you think?
I always love when a creative strategist has like high conviction, because it's either it's such a good, like I don't really care in terms of like, should that be something that they optimize for so that they can get more winning ads? I actually just think it's like probably the most powerful learning tool. Like, because if someone has high conviction and it flops, like what a better way to learn, you know? We had this recently, actually, one of our creative strategists was like, I would stake like an entire month's salary on this ad. And it did not work as well. And I was like, but I fucking loved that you went there, you know? So do I think you should develop conviction as a creative strategist? I think it's a really great like guiding tool. I think your instinct is something that like I talk a lot about with my creative strategists. Like you have to develop the instinct based on evidence, and like that evidence ranking system that I showed earlier is something that's like really helped to develop more of that instinct. Because I guess the other thing that people talk a lot about is taste, and you have to develop taste as your creative strategist. And it's like boring conversation. Like, okay, like, maybe I'm just not the creative director type, but it's like, yeah, taste is like kind of important, but like your instinct as a creative strategist is going to be the thing that's going to help like steer your road mapping, steering you to like decide which insights are important. But taste often just goes back to like, do you like it or not? And it's like, who gives a shit if you like it? It might perform even if you hate it. Like, I can't tell you how many times I put ads out into the market where I'm like, ugh, woof, cringe. But it is what it is.
Yeah. I've had similar conversations, and the thing that roots me is like going back to the research. It's like what we're starting to do is understand who is the ideal consumer of this brand. And then like what we are trying to figure out and develop conviction around is the idea of like what messaging cuts through all the bullshit to speak directly to that person at the end of the day. So a simple like thumbs up, thumbs down never passes in my mind. But it's like if you've done the work and it's like you know who you're speaking to, it's like that's where the conviction can start to come to life.
Yeah, like I think I literally yelled at someone on like a team call the other day. They're like, I don't like it. And I was like, I don't give a fuck. You're like, do not care. Like, it's just not the thing. It's just like not the thing to optimize for.
This is so funny.
Anyways.
Dara, I love the energy. I got to get you out of here though. I'm wondering if you have any final words for our audience today.
Creative strategists are my most favorite people in the world. Like, it is my true calling to like develop like more education and training for you guys. Like, I love being in these rooms. I love meeting you guys like IRL, because absolutely nothing compares to like, we all do this work and it's very button, whatever. You're like in your Claude for hours at a time and you just have no sense of anything. Being able to like meet people and talk about this work in real life is bar none like the most impactful thing. So I want to like, you know, have iced coffee with you guys and like hang out and rub elbows and like wear sunglasses, like get the sun on our face, you know?
Dara, you're the best. I appreciate you. Everybody throw love in the chat one time, and connect with Dara on all socials, okay? Love, 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 love,
Thanks,
love.
everyone. Bye.